The tank, infantry, MKI, Matilda I, ww2, is a British infantry tank of the Second World War. Despite being slow, cramped and armed with only a single machine gun, the Matilda I had some success in the Battle of France in 1940, owing to its heavy armor, which was proof against the standard German anti-tank guns. However, it was essentially useless in an attacking sense, as its weak armament made it toothless in combat against enemy armor, and the tank was obsolete before it even came into service. 3. 4. The Battle of France was the only time the Matilda I saw combat. 4. The tank was cheaply built as the British government wanted each of the tanks to be built on a very restricted budget in the build-up to the Second World War. 4. It is not to be confused with the later, more successful, model tank, infantry MKII, ww2, also known as the Matilda II, which took over the Matilda name after the Matilda I was withdrawn from combat service in 1940. They were completely separate designs. Development history: the driver of a Matilda I in France during the winter of 1939-40. This shows the cramped driver's compartment and how the hatch obstructs the gun turret. The development of the tank began with Sir Hugh Ells, Master General of Ordnance, and Major General E. Davidson, who concurred that a tank designed to support infantry attacks was needed. After consulting with Major General Percy Hobart, they decided that large groups of small, lightly armed tanks were needed to overrun enemy positions, and approached Sir John Carden at Vickers Armstrongs Limited to design and begin work on a tank based on these principles, which began in 1935. 5. The General Staff specification required a cheap tank, requiring the use of already commercially available automotive components. 6. It resulted in a small two-man vehicle with a low hull and a small cast turret. The turret was fitted with a single heavy machine gun, either a 303 7.7mm caliber Vickers machine gun or the larger 12.7mm Vickers 50 machine gun, designed for quick delivery as well as low cost. The AE-11 used many stock parts from other vehicles: a Ford V8 engine, a Fordson gearbox, a steering mechanism similar to the one used in Vickers light tanks, and suspension adapted from the MKIV Dragon artillery tractor that was based on the Vickers 6-ton tank model E. 5. The hull and turret were well protected against contemporary anti-tank weapons, but the tracks and running gear were exposed and more vulnerable than on tanks that had protected tracks. The lack of a gun with anti-tank capability severely limited its utility on the battlefield. Besides operating the machine gun, the commander had to direct the driver and operate the radio. There being no room in the turret for the radio, it was placed in the hull. The commander had to duck down inside and lie almost prone to operate it. The driver's position was equally cramped and the turret could not be traversed forward while the driver's hatch was open. The top speed of 8 miles per hour, 13 km/h, was thought to be sufficient for supporting an infantry advance. 7. Essentially, the tank was a First World War tank designed 20 years after its conclusion. 3. Those who designed the tank were influenced by the mistaken belief that combat in a new war would be the same as in World War I, in which tanks were used for breaking through strong, static defensive positions. 3. As a result, the tank was obsolete both in design and in its intended purpose. 3. General Hugh Ells, the Master General of the Ordnance, is credited with giving the tank the name Matilda, due to the vehicle's diminutive size and duck-like shape and gait. 8. However, the code name Matilda for the project was created for Vickers at the time of drawing up the specification in 1935. 9. 10. The tank, infantry, Mark I name was an Army Council decision of June 1940. Production history. Main article: British Armoured Fighting Vehicle production during World War II. The first order of 60 Matilda tanks was placed in April 1937, followed by an order for a further 60 10 days later, and another 19 were ordered in January 1939. 11. The tank remained in production until August 1940, with a total of 140 produced, including the prototype. Some were equipped with the heavier 50-inch Vickers machine gun, instead of the 303-inch Vickers machine gun. Combat history. Matilda I tanks equipped the 4th Battalion and 7th Battalion of the Royal Tank Regiment, RTR. In September 1939, upon the outbreak of the Second World War, the 4th RT deployed to France with the British Expeditionary Force. They were joined at the start of May 1940 by 7th RTR, and together formed the 1st Army Tank Brigade. 12. Apart from light tanks assigned to the various British infantry divisions, this was the only British armoured force on the continent at the start of the Battle of France. On the 10th of May 1940, the 58 Matilda is and 16 Matilda II spearheaded the counterattack in the Battle of Arras on the 21st of May, temporarily discomfiting the 7th Panzer Division under Rommel. 13. The heavy armor of both types of British tank proved to be resistant to the standard German 37mm anti-tank gun, and the attack was only halted by a gun line hastily formed from 105mm howitzers and 88mm anti-aircraft guns, personally directed by Rommel. 14. On the following day, only 26 Matildas and 2 Matilda II tanks were still serviceable. 15.